All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we get started, just in case there's a copyright on the music, I just want to say, YouTube, this is fair use, fair use, fair use. I'm playing this music for entertainment purposes only. I just want to burn some time until the people get into the room and people get in the chat. So please don't mess with me about it. Let's get it. All right. What is up, everybody? What's happening? What's happening? Welcome to the show. Welcome to another cookout. We're gonna have to give this show a name, B Miles. We gotta call this thing the cookout or something, because Man. Well, I just want to say though, I really appreciate you allowing me to do this because I finally because of you, I finally gotten a chance once again to get exposure to a much larger audience and really get this information out the way that I would really like to get it out. You know what I'm saying? Because there was a time when I had, I had my numbers up too, and I had, a large following, and my followers from their shares alone, the message would spread. And of course, that's why they started zapping my channels. But I just want to say, brother, I appreciate you seeing the value in the content and the information that I bring, because I definitely see the value in the information that you bring. And it's the synergy, you know what I'm saying? The working together. That's what we need more of. Instead of the beefing, let's cooperate and collaborate, because that's what our enemies do. While we beef with each other, they over there making deals and doing business. But tonight we're going to talk about Black Lives Matter. We're kind of going to take a walk down memory lane and discuss a lot of things about Black Lives Matter that maybe many people have forgotten. And I think what really inspired me to do this was we kind of see something similar with the anti-ICE protests. It's just that the crash outs are not as intense, because the same political structure that was in place back then is no longer in place anymore to protect these people. So they're not able to get away with half the shit that, the rioters got away with in 2020. And I think this is a perfect topic since, B Miles, you just coined the term professional crash out, the PCOs, because 2020 was definitely a mass PCO operation for sure. I mean, and for my audience that may not know what a PCO is, because I'm sure your audience does, can you just go ahead and take some time and explain what that term means?
Yes, but I call them a PCO, professional crash out, pretty much meaning like these people are low in vibration and frequency. They are like energy vampires, and these PCOs, they are just like NPCs, and they go from 0 to 100 like really, really fast. And then of course, they are very vampiric and stuff like that, and they are just ready to wild out and crash out. They don't think, they just react.
Yeah, that's what it is. They react based on the propaganda that's been fed to them and the false beliefs that they believe. Because I always say this, I say the reason why the establishment engages in mind control tactics is because as long as they get you to believe what it is they need you to believe, they'll always be able to get you to react the way they want you to react. Prime example, 2020, the pandemic. Before the pandemic, they were showing us all these quarantine movies and pandemic movies and zombie movies, right? And it was always the CDC and the medical people in charge trying to figure out what the sickness is and quarantining the whole world and all that. So we were, say again?
The movie Contagion.
Yep. And so the people have been mentally conditioned to believe that these types of events could actually happen. So when they start seeing it being broadcast on the fake news, their minds immediately go back to that imaginary world that was fed to them on TV. And now that they're seeing it reflected in the real world, they're now reacting the same way the people on TV were reacting in those movies, because they've seen it so much in fantasy that now they're seeing it where they're supposed to be seeing reality. So now that fantasy becomes their reality. So they believe in the fantasy so much that when they hit them with the stimuli in reality, they react the same way as the people in the fantasy. Give up their rights for safety. And when it comes to Black Lives Matter and the crash outs and the riots of 2020, it was a lot more, because the crash outs was what was put in our face, right? The burning down of buildings, the riots, the shootouts, the killings, all that stuff. That's what was put in front of our face. But there was a lot more going on behind the scenes that many people still aren't aware of. And what I want to share with you guys tonight is some of that information that, many of us as well meaning as we are and as well researched as we are, the enemy engages in very, very cunning deception tactics. So because of these tactics, many of us have missed these other elements to the Black Lives Matter riots. So that's what I plan to, peel the curtain back on and show you guys just how big of a scheme it was. And it was an attack on all levels. This is why I titled it tonight, B Miles and Citizen Man discuss Black Lives Matter, the scam, the Satanism, the pedophilia. The scam was the financial aspect of it. The Satanism was the spiritual aspect of it. And the pedophilia was the physical, perverted aspect of it. And all three elements were present during that period of time and even in the years leading up to it. Because this organization is an offshoot of, or at least a social justice warrior wing of the Democratic Party. This is why they were always prevalent in these democratic cities and able to commit all these crimes in these democratic cities. And another thing that a lot of people tend to miss is Antifa were actually directly involved in the riots. Antifa were brought in from outside cities into certain cities to incite the violence and get the local people in those towns who were peacefully protesting to join in the violence. And there were a lot of people in these cities that were saying, hey, these people that are burning shit down in my town are not from my town. There were a lot of people saying that, including the mayor of Minneapolis. And of course, Minneapolis was where all of this started with the George Floyd incident. And he was the mayor before Jacob Fry took over, by the way. But we'll get into it. The Satanism, the scam, the Satanism, and the pedophilia. So what I would like to start with is the Satanism. So B Miles, do you have anything you would like to add, brother?
Not at the moment. You can go in and cook, bro.
All right. Well, shit, I guess you just enjoying the show too then, huh?
Absolutely. Yep.
Well, my friend, I'll tell you what, it will be my pleasure to keep you all entertained. Most
Absolutely.
definitely.
I'm gonna chime in what is necessary.
For sure. For sure. I'm gonna need that input. All right, so let's go ahead and do this. But before we get started, guys, and B Miles, I'm sorry I got to do this on your platform, but I do this every show. Go follow me over on Rumble, guys. YouTube censors me a lot, and I have a lot of content that's on Rumble that you won't find on YouTube. Rumble is absolutely free. It's just like YouTube, pretty much. And the link to my Rumble page is in the description box of every video on YouTube and as well as Rumble. So if you guys bounce over to the Citizen Man TV YouTube page and go to the description box, the first link you'll find in the description box is actually the Rumble link. And of course, I have the backup YouTube channel called Citizen Man. So I don't really have much content on that channel, but I'm probably going to have to start posting on there. And I've been saying that for years and I still haven't done it yet. So I need to stop lying to y'all. But I do keep that channel alive because if they zap Citizen Man TV, I'll still have a presence on YouTube and you guys can still come over and connect with me. Of course, it says 3 subscribers, but that was years ago. I think it's a few hundred now. And of course, last but not least, and this is not only for just Citizen Man, but this applies to B Miles too. If you guys, whether you're B Miles' audience or my audience, would like to support the show, and as independent content creators, we definitely need that support. You guys can support B Miles through the Cash App. His mods drop the links in the chat. You can support me through the Cash App, through PayPal or Venmo. My links are pinned to the top of my chat. So just keep that in mind. And remember, whenever you're if you're debating with yourself about whether you should donate to a truth teller on YouTube or not, just consider this. Fake news reporters on those big networks, they get paid millions of dollars a year to read you a script and lie to you. Millions of dollars. So for little guys like us, just basically digitally panhandling, but we're giving you such profound truths that it could change your life. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being selfish, but I think it's worth something. You know what I'm saying? I think it's worth something. And it also actually donating to your to your favorite YouTubers actually helps to attract more viewers. Because what happens is people would like browse through the channel or, you know, pop up on their timeline and they'll tune in. And a lot of times, and this has been psychologically proven, if they hear the content creator shouting out donations, they're more likely to stay. It piques their interest because their minds go to, well, if people are paying for this content, let me see what it's worth for myself. And they become more intrigued. So you have more of a chance of attracting more viewers. It's the weirdest thing, but that's just how it works. So shout out to everybody who have been supporting both me and B Miles. I really appreciate you guys. And I hope that that support continues. So let me just start you guys off with a history lesson. I don't know how many of you are aware, but it turns out that the Muppets actually hosted the very first Zoom call ever recorded on camera. How about that? Yeah, that's what that was. That was a Zoom call. Ain't that something? Ain't that something? But with Black Lives Matter, the social justice warrior offshoot of the Democratic Party, they are Satanists. So I'll start you off there. Remember, while the riots were going on in 2020, the Democratic Party was campaigning, right? And this was their campaign for the Democratic National Convention. It said D20, Democratic National Convention, Uniting America, right? I just want you guys to keep that in mind as I show you the next slide. What's up, everybody? I had to turn the camera back on. I think y'all like me better when I'm on camera. So shout out to everybody that's here. So I want you to pay attention to the symbolism, right? So here it says D20, right? That just to the average eye, it's Democrats 20. But look at the way this star is pointing, and then the 2, and then the United States. I want you to focus on that because this is the D code right here. It's going to blow your mind. The star is the Baphomet, which represents death. The 2 is basically for the word TO, and there's America. So their D20 logo literally spells out in symbolism, death to America. And you know what happened? Joe Biden got elected, and America came very close to death, did it not? Life became unlivable for most productive, hardworking people. And not only did life become unlivable, but the cities that they lived in became overrun and overcrowded, and life changed for the worst. So they were telling us what their plan was the entire time. And funny enough, while they were displaying this as their national convention promo, Death to America, Black Lives Matter was running around doing satanic ritual seances and profiting off of dead men. You know what that's called? That's called the soul harvest. And it's one of the most satanic things you can do. It's actually the one thing that all Satanists at some point must engage in order to meet their god, Satan, to guarantee themselves a one-way ticket to hell. But before they get that ticket to hell, they get to live the high life here on earth. That's what they believe. And George Soros is another Satanist who is also one of probably the number one funder of the Democratic Party. And oddly enough, this is what he said back in September of 2014. I'm going to bring down the United States by funding black hate groups. We'll put them into a mental trap and make them blame white people. The black community is the easiest to manipulate. And this is why this immigration thing has become so important, because the immigration issue is actually uniting black and white America under that flag behind me right there.
Facts.
And this whole play about dividing black people and white people, it's divide and conquer. And this is why for so many years, because remember, Soros said this in 2014. This was during the Obama years. So this plan was in place since back then. And oddly enough, 2013, 2014 was when the original Black Lives Matter, started by a brother by the name of Darren Seals in St. Louis, and two other brothers of his, two other friends of his, when they started Black Lives Matter because of the Mike Brown situation, they actually went to the local black church, which was, again, a Democrat. It doubled as a Democratic headquarters. And because their movement was gaining so much traction, they went to the church, which put them in touch with the Democratic Party in order to, or members of the Democratic Party, mainly the Black Congressional Caucus, to help them get national attention. And you know what these people did? They co-opted those guys' movement. They trademarked the logo and they turned it into this big anti-white, anti-America campaign that lasted all 2020. That's literally what they did. And it gets worse. Darren Seals, when Black Lives Matter started going rainbow and all that shit, Darren Seals actually started going public online, exposing the fact that Black Lives Matter was stolen from him and the original creators, and it was turned into this cancerous movement of anti-white racism. He was basically displeased with the direction Black Lives Matter had gone. And wouldn't you know, he ended up being shot to death. One of the other brothers was found hanging in his backyard from a noose. And I think the other guy, I think he got shot and killed too. Or he was hung, or two of them was hung and one was shot, or two was shot and one was hung. I'm not sure how it went. And Black Lives Matter, again, tried to use that hanging to capitalize on it. But you know what happened instead? People started to figure out that it was the Democratic Party and Black Lives Matter that murdered this man, and they did it in such a way that it looked like racist white people did it, so they could blame the white people for hanging that man when it was them that hung that man. And they got away with it. The county coroner ruled it a suicide. They got away with it. So the Black Hate Group was created in 2014. And that Black Hate Group became the monster that we saw in 2020 under the leadership of this woman right here, Patrisse Cullors. Now, most of you are familiar with Patrisse Cullors, and you're also aware of the fact that she stole a lot of the Black Lives Matter donation money and bought herself $3 million plus mansions, not mansions, but $1 million houses in multi-million dollar properties in California. And we really haven't heard much from her since. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's because the military got her. The top leaders of these organizations were grabbed by the military. The lower level people now, you're starting to see getting indicted for their financial crimes, because the top people are facing the death penalty under military tribunal for treason. So they're telling on everybody else to get a break. So you see the top people disappear completely from society, and then you start to see the lower people right below them catch federal charges in civilian courts. And that's literally what just happened, because the Black Lives Matter chapter leader of Oklahoma City just got indicted a few days ago. I believe I reported on that article on Sunday night on my show. Either Sunday night or last Friday, I can't remember. But she just got indicted. Others have been indicted. But this is how it goes. And these people, they serve the political left because the political left is the party of Satanism. And that's what unites them. That's why they all seem to be united with their drug addictions, their sexual perversions, their communistic ideologies. That's why they all unite under that. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but every liberal that's been put in a major position of power has been either accused of crimes, convicted of crimes, suspected of crimes, or is currently being investigated for crimes. And then it kind of makes you scratch your head and wonder, like, how can a political establishment allow so many dirtbags to slip through the cracks and get into these positions of power? Well, that would be the normal question for any normal person to ponder on. But when you start to see a pattern of this happening, that's when you got to realize that this is an agenda. And they're looking for these specific criminal-minded, terroristic-minded people to help carry out their agenda, because the agenda is evil and it's destructive to society, and they need people who are willing to carry it out regardless of the destruction it'll cause to society. In other words, they need people who are willing to sell out to make themselves rich at the expense of everybody else in their own country. Thus, where would you find these people? The criminal class. Remember, the criminal class consists of people who are willing to risk their own freedom for a payout. So don't you think they will sacrifice your freedom for a payout? So the criminal class, that's where you find the cheapest puppets and the cheapest slaves. And of course, among the criminal class, you have the Satanists, because a lot of their rituals are criminal, you know, like the child sacrifice. Yeah, that's kind of illegal. But I want you to pay attention to something on Patrisse Cullors' shirt. Excuse me. And what you're looking at on her shirt right there are the 3 stripes. Now ask yourself, if that's a logo for Black Lives Matter, what does 3 plain lines have to do with black people and their lives mattering? Well, the logical answer is absolutely nothing. It has nothing to do with that. But she's wearing that because she's sending a message. She's sending a message to her masters. And remember, George Soros was one of the biggest original funders of Black Lives Matter until they started extorting these corporations. And wait till I get to cooking on that. But part of the Satanism involves blood sacrifices. So every black man that was killed by the police that they profited off of, that was a blood sacrifice to them. Because you notice how Black Lives Matter paraded around as if they cared about the lives of black men, but never once did they ever address the issue of, listen, black man, this is what you don't do with the police for them to kill you. They never said that. They never said, listen, don't fight with the police because they're going to kill you. Never once was that uttered in the entire Black Lives Matter conversation. It was always this person that acted a fool with the police and gave the police a green light to do them harm, which, you know, many assume the police would want to do that anyway. Why give them a green light to do it? And these men that did that and got themselves hurt and killed in the process were foisted up like victims, which in a way they were. But logically speaking, they were things these individuals could have done to avoid meeting the fates that they met. And this is just true shit. And if you really truly care about black people and black lives really do matter to you, why not advise these young people on what they need to do in order to preserve their black life? But never once did they say that. And in fact, what they did by foisting these guys up as just 100% victims with no responsibility to bear for what happened to them. Because remember, if George Floyd would have just let him put the cuffs on him and sat his ass in the police car, he would have never gotten a knee on his neck. And that's a fact. Granted, it should not have come to that because they already had him restrained and handcuffed. But at the same time, if he's refusing to get in the car, guess what? The police now have to use force to get him in the car. But if they intend on doing somebody harm, and this is just from the perspective that the George Floyd thing was all real, because I got other, you know, let's just go that route, right? If George Floyd would have just gotten his ass in the police car because he already knew he was going to jail, he's been there so many times before. I mean, he knows the drill. He would have never gotten a knee on his neck. Jacob Blake fortunately survived his shooting. And you know what he said from his hospital bed? And that was the last time he was ever seen on TV. He said to the young men, he said, Don't do what I did. Just listen to the police and don't do what I did, because you'll get yourself hurt. And you know what? It took him getting himself hurt to realize that that was a bad decision. And he was the only person in that whole Black Lives Matter scenario that even uttered that. And once he said that, because he said it from his hospital bed on a news interview, once he said that, he never got any more interviews. He was never seen on TV again. And what happened to Jacob Blake? He's surrounded by police. They already got a call about him committing some sort of act of violence. I believe it was sexual assault or something like that. And he starts getting aggressive with the police and reaches in his car, even though they told him not to. That's a bad idea. You're going to get yourself hurt. And anybody that encourages that kind of behavior, they do not have your best interest at heart. I'm sorry to say it, but they don't. Because if they had your best interest at heart, the first thing they would tell you is, hey, young man, don't do that in front of the police because they'll kill you. And I don't want to see you die. But when you're dealing with an organization that literally profits from Black men dying, it actually would serve them to get more Black men to sacrifice themselves so they can harvest more souls and acquire more wealth. Because every Black man that gets killed by the police, they get to have a riot, have a rally, collect donations, and get even richer. So, of course, they would encourage the foolishness. I mean, most of us in here, we're parents, right? And if there's, let's say, this larger kid in the neighborhood that's got a chip on his shoulder, and he goes around and all he does is just beats people up, would you encourage your kid to challenge that bully, or would you advise your kid to stay away from that bully? You would probably advise your kid to stay away from that bully, because why? Your kid's life actually matters to you. So you would advise your kid to do something that would preserve his health, his safety, and his life. So you're not going to act like in front of your kid, challenging, picking a fight with the bully and getting your ass beat is a good idea. You're not going to do that. You're going to tell your kid, hey, stay away from that kid because he'll whoop your ass. Because you actually care about your kid. But when you have an organization that, again, profits from people getting hurt, that can't ever be a part of the conversation, because that's antithetical goal. The goal is we need more souls. We need more Black men to fall victim to police violence so we can have more rallies and make more money. That's the agenda. So any logical advice that would preserve Black life would work against them. So they have to give you the worst possible advice, but they have to sell it to you in such a way that you'll accept it. Because nobody's going to take you seriously if you go around telling people, yeah, go fight the police. Yeah, pull out a knife on them. Yeah, pull a gun on them. Yeah. No, because people are immediately going to think, hey, the police are going to respond with violence, and I might not walk away from that. But if they praise these people as victims, once they pull that knife on the police or pull that gun on the police or try to fight the police, once they get harmed in response and they're foisted up and lifted up as victims, the victimhood is portrayed to absolve that person of any responsibility of what happened to them. So you remove the idea of being responsible for yourself and acting responsibly. And all that does is encourages the next young man to go act recklessly and get himself hurt. It's like leading the lemmings off the cliff. It's diabolical. But that's one thing they were doing behind the scenes. And as the riots were going on, other innocent bystanders were falling victim. Sister of girl killed during Iowa protest. A protester shot my sister. A protester, not the police. And the reason why these rioters were being called protesters is because the fake news kept calling them protesters. The fake news kept saying, oh, mostly peaceful protesters. And they kept on repeating it on every channel over and over and over again until it became basically the way we refer to these rioters. It became the replacement word for rioters. But by protesters, she means rioters. And the way they would do the riots was during the day, the legitimate Black Lives Matter supporters that genuinely did not want to see black men hurt because they weren't profiting from black men dying, they would go out, have their peaceful protests, do their marches, carry their picket signs and all that. And then when the sun goes down, the buses would show up. Antifa would jump off those buses and go join the remnants or the left, the people that stayed behind late from the Black Lives Matter protest. And they would start marching with them and busting out windows and lighting shit on fire and looting. And then the people that were marching with them, a lot of them got suckered into doing that shit. And when the police would finally respond after hours of them being allowed to do it, the out-of-towners would skip town, and the local kids, who were usually black kids, because most of these communities were black communities, the local kids, they would fall victim to the police and get arrested. And nobody would come to bail them out of jail except their own families. But when the Antifa members would start getting arrested, Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party actually set up a whole fundraiser to bail them out of jail. You can go look that up. That's facts. But as these Democratic mayors in these cities were ordering the police to stand down for hours, businesses were being burned and looted, and people were being killed. Here is eight people of God knows how many more that died during the Black Lives Matter riots, killed by BLM and Antifa, because it was both groups rioting, not just Black Lives Matter. It was done under the Black Lives Matter banner, but the foot soldiers on the ground that were inciting the violence and leading the violence was Antifa. That's why you'd see the shots of the protest during the day. It's all these black people from the community. Then you see the shots of the riots at night. It's all these white people with their faces covered. And what was ironic about the whole thing? It was done under the Black Lives Matter banner, but the Democratic Party, which is the party of the KKK, literally used their white operatives to burn down more black communities, just like the Klan used to do. But this time they did it while pretending to be your friends. And the thing about Black Lives Matter and Antifa is both groups are funded by George Soros. Both groups are sisters from the same origin. They're sister organizations from the same origin. But because the Democratic Party is racist, they literally are racist. They started Black Lives Matter for the black folks, for the black liberals, and Antifa for the white liberals. They're the party of segregation, and it's evident by the existence of Black Lives Matter and Antifa. And in case you're wondering, why is it that Donald Trump named Antifa a terrorist organization, but not Black Lives Matter a terrorist organization? Well, the simple answer is he didn't want to be called racist by labeling the black group terrorists, right? So that, that's kind of obvious. But there's a more sinister plan that Black Lives Matter had up their sleeves that Trump actually was able to thwart by not declaring them a terrorist organization. And if that confuses you, well, it confused the hell out of me too. But once I explain it to you, you'll understand. So just hold on to that. You know what I'm saying? Just put that in your takeout box and set it in the microwave for a few minutes so I can have the stove to continue cooking. So there's your three lines again in the Obama symbol, right? Let's get back to the satanic symbolism. There's your 3 lines again. Everybody saw this symbol when Obama ran for office, right? Everybody saw this shit. And nobody really thought nothing of it. It just looked like a sunrise over the land. But when you look at the 3 lines in the Obama logo, it's 3 stripes, just like Patrice Cullors' shirt. Let's bounce back to that really quick. There's your 3 stripes. Obama. There's your 3 stripes. Jay-Z's Blueprint 3 album. 3 stripes, right? Seems to be a trend here. The Adidas logo. All the Adidas logos. 3 stripes. Gucci. 3 stripes. Louis Vuitton. Let me see. Let me go to my big gallery so I can zoom in on it so you guys can really, really see that thing. You see the LV? How the L and the V cross with the vertical of the L in the middle of the V? That's your 3 stripes. I hope you guys can see that. That's your 3 stripes right there. Oh, I'm still sharing the other gallery, so you guys didn't even get to see me zoom in on that thing. Damn it. All right, whatever. But you guys see it. Y'all can see it. Y'all can see it. Your 3 stripes. Balenciaga. Look at the B. 3 horizontal stripes, just like Jay-Z's album, but it's still just 3 stripes. And we all know Balenciaga is a satanic brand, right? Or we better know. Well, those 3 stripes actually represent the devil's trident. And what the devil's trident represents is simply the devil's tool. The trident is his weapon or tool of choice. So when you see these Satanists displaying the 3 stripes, what they're actually displaying in their logos and in their designs is they're signaling to other Satanists that they are tools of Satan as well. That's what the 3 stripes is about. The 3 stripes to a Satanist is like a crucifix to a Christian, right? From the time you see that cross, you know it's Christian territory. You know this is a Christian person. Well, for the Satanists, because most of us, I would assume, are not Satanists, so we wouldn't know too much about the satanic symbolism and how they communicate with one another. But the 3 stripes is how they signal to each other that they are Satanists, just like a Christian would signal to another Christian with the cross. They signal with the 3 stripes. And Adidas, the acronym is All Day I Dream About Sex, is what they say it is, right? But that's actually a little bit milquetoast for what it actually means. First of all, the guy's name was Adi and his last name was Das. So he put it together as Adidas. That's how you're supposed to say Adidas. But since it's become, gone international and become so commercialized, well, they had to throw the 3 stripes on it and make it satanic. And the acronym is actually All Day I Dream About Satan. Not sex. It's I dream about Satan. It's a little bit worse, right? A little worse. But that's what the 3 stripe symbolism represents. It represents them telling other Satanists that, hey, I am a tool for the devil. And this is what I was referencing when I was telling you guys about the flat earth on the first collab that we did, where I talked about how understanding the damn it, I'm losing my train of thought. Shit. I'm losing my train of thought. Oh, understanding the games that they play in order to get you to wear and sport and display these satanic symbols by putting it in your putting it in your clothing logos, and just everyday things that you won't think twice about. But once you don these brands, you are actually wearing the brand of the tools of Satan. So Black Lives Matter was big into the Satanism with the soul harvesting, their connections to the Democratic Party, their religious connections to the Democratic Party, and of course, the symbolism that they displayed kind of confirmed that. And the fact that it was an organization built to profit off death, I mean, kind of goes without saying. But here is where it gets even more interesting, because this gets into the Pflia aspect of Black Lives Matter. Now, what this guy with the cigarette in his hand is pointing at right here is this was a very large Black Lives Matter mural that was painted in front of, I believe it was the Michigan State Capitol or the Wisconsin State Capitol. One of the two. But Will Johnson did a report on it. If you guys aren't familiar with Will Johnson, he's another prominent Black conservative commentator. And what this guy with the cigarette was pointing at was one of the lines, like one of the edges on the Black Lives Matter mural that they painted in the street. And he's pointing to these spiral triangles. Does anybody know what the spiral triangle represents? All right, so Tony Kaiser thinks he can prove that the earth is round. Okay, Tony Kaiser. You clearly have not done enough research into the flat earth theories. Let's just start there and call it theories, just to make you a little more comfortable. But I strongly suggest that you actually pay attention and go listen to some serious flat earth researchers before you just say it's ludicrous. Because again, the first show that I did with B Miles, I kind of broke it all down, how people have been deceived into thinking and operating like that. And that knee-jerk reaction is an indicator of programming. So as an intelligent person, when you feel yourself having that knee-jerk reaction, you got to take a step back and say, you know what? It does sound crazy, but I know this guy can't be crazy because he knows what he's talking about when it comes to everything else. So let me actually give this thing a serious look. You know how I started getting into flat earth? I'm going to tell you right now. I had the same reaction you had when I first heard about it. And my intention in researching it was to actually find the holes in it and debunk it. And I ended up finding all the holes in the globe. And I kind of been stuck there ever since, because I can't go back to the lie once the lie has been proven to be a lie. You know what I mean? But, you're free to believe what you want. Just, tonight ain't about that. So we don't have to do that. But yes, that spiral triangle is yes, I was asking you guys in B Miles chat too. I'm on the channel. You can hear me, right? I'm broadcasting. I hope I am. But yeah, it's a pedophile symbol. So they were openly broadcasting publicly in their public mural that they were basically in support of pedophilia. So aside from the three-stripe logo symbolizing that they're tools of Satan, they're also using the pedophile logo, which shows that they engage in some of the worst satanic acts that you can think of. Thanks for being a good sport, Holly. I was looking for some laughs there. I was looking for some laughs, and you have appeased me. Thank you, Holly. I am thoroughly appeased. My joke was funny. Somebody thought it was funny. And so the spiral triangle, for those of you who may not know, it actually is, in fact, a pedophile symbol. And here it is featured in a Daily Mail article. And that Daily Mail article actually discusses an FBI decode page that shows all the pedophile symbols and the pedophile codes. And the code words, Pizzagate. Pizza is a big pedophile code word. And if you go back through the video archives, you'll hear a lot of these Hollywood celebrities, many of the same ones that were praising and supporting Black Lives Matter, in fact, making off the cuff weird comments about pizza. But to those of you who may think that's diabolical enough, it gets worse, because if you look at the image on the left, yes, it says sheriff. And that is an LA County Sheriff's badge. You know, the police, you know, the people that are supposed to rescue the kids from the pedophiles. But look what's on the badge. Look at the triangle. It's the same symbol on the badge. And then you wonder why so many kids go missing every year and they're never found. Because the people that are supposed to find them, in a lot of cases, not every case, they are members of organizations that feed on these kids. They use these kids for satanic ritual abuse, whether it be SA abuse, or it be the R word abuse, or it be human sacrifice abuse. And if the county sheriff's badge bears that symbol, now let me say this. It's not reflective of every deputy in the LA County Sheriff's Office, but the people in charge who actually approved this design, those are the ones you got to look at with the side eye. But of course, when there's corruption at the top, it trickles down to the bottom. Because if you have a corrupt sheriff in office, he's going to hire corrupt deputies, because he doesn't want deputies that are honest and are going to tell the truth, because they're going to tell on him. And that could cause him a huge problem. So to avoid that problem, he'll hire people just like himself. And remember, LA was one of the biggest Black Lives Matter riot cities. The celebrities that supported Black Lives Matter, many of them pedophiles. Here's a picture of LeBron James with his daughter. That's his daughter. You know, daddy and daughter, beautiful smiles. You know, I remember when my daughter was that age. But look where her hand is. And he's just allowing it. That's uncomfortable to just to look at. But to sit there and pose like that while your kid's hand is grabbing your crotch, that's weird. And remember, this is the same Mr. Ain't No Party Like a Diddy party. It's kind of scary. Kind of scary. Just a little scary. Not terrifying. It's not terrifying. Well, it is. It's more cringy. And then you look at Dwayne Wade's son and what Dwayne Wade has done to his son. One can only imagine. Or how about Rob Reiner's son, who just flipped out and slit him in his wife's throat? That boy was sexually abused. And it turns out that 62% of kids that kill their parents were victims of sexual abuse, either at the hands of their parents or at the hands of somebody their parents exposed them to. This is why I never liked LeBron James. And of course, Black Lives Matter teamed up with the Rainbow Gang. Now, being gay is one thing, and there's plenty of gay people out there that are normal functioning adults. They just happen to be, you know, a little sexually confused, right? And they like the same sex or whatever, not attracted to the opposite sex, whatever, right? But they don't make it public information. It's not a part of their identity. And in a lot of cases, if they didn't tell you, you would never know, because they're just normal people, right? But then you got the Rainbow Crew, who makes their sexuality their entire identity, because these people are perverts. They literally live life based on their genitals. They identify based on their genitals and which genitals they choose to put in their mouths. And they're trying desperately to incorporate kids into their sexual perversion. This is part of the reason why Trump shut down the Federal Department of Education, because it was the Federal Department of Education under Obama that normalized this and made this okay. And through this rainbow flag being a protected community, the pedophiles found safe haven. So they hide behind the guise of the rainbow in order to target children. Hence why you see the transgender story time. What is the reason for that? Well, it's quite simple. To groom the kids, over-sexualize the kids, so they can have another generation of perverts just like themselves. You see, perverts reproduce like vampires. They can't have sex with one another and make babies, right? So they have to target normal babies to turn these babies into what they are. And I used to have a running joke that it's kind of funny if you're into dark humor, but it's not really that funny. I say vampires will bite you on the neck. The LGBT bite you on the dick. They're vampires, but they just bite you on the dick. And now they're trying to bite our kids on the dick. And the whole trans kids movement, once they started that, they took it way too far. Way too far. Because any adult that's that concerned about another person's child's sexuality, you have to be a pedophile in order to even think that way. You gotta be. There's no normal person on earth that looks at a child and thinks about that child's sexuality. In fact, child and sexuality don't even go together in the same sentence. So the people that are pretending as if they care so much about these children that they want to change their gender and cut off their genitals and all that, those people are pedophiles, and you can't convince me otherwise. There's no convincing me otherwise. They are absolute pedophiles, because you have to be to even think along those lines. And considering the biggest supporters of Black Lives Matter have pedophilic tendencies, it was only fitting that Black Lives Matter would join forces with the Rainbow Gang, because this is what the Rainbow Gang is all about. Now, this guy is a city councilman, I believe, or he's either a congressman or a senator from, I believe, Minneapolis, Minnesota, George Floyd City. And his name is Scott Wiener. Yeah, funny last name for a pedo, right? And I have no idea who this kid is or if that kid is his son, but that's him, grown-ass man, at a gay pride parade with posing with a little boy. And again, Scott Wiener was one of the big Democrats supporting Black Lives Matter. Sick. Just sick. So we talked about the Satanism. We talked about the Pflia. Now we're getting into the infiltration and the scam. St. Remy LeBlue says, "My bad, bro. It's not funny, but I like dark humor." Thank you. At least somebody likes my dark humor. Vampires bite you on the dick. Because that's what the LGBT vampires. That's what they do. That's how they roll. They want to turn you out and turn you into them because they can't reproduce on their own, so they got to create more of themselves. And how else do they do it? Well, leave that up to the imagination. Maybe I said a little too much. Now ain't nobody gonna hit the Cash App. But this was a post, an ad actually posted by Antifa back in 2020 about November 4th, election day. But because they were able to steal the election on election day, they decided to implement this very same plan on January 6th. That's why you see the edit there from November 4th to January 6th in the first line. And it basically says, on January 6th, don't forget to disguise yourselves as patriots/Trump supporters. Wear MAGA hats, USA flags, 3%er insignias. A convincing police uniform is even better. And this is your receipt for when I said January 6th was a combination of the Capitol Police, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and the FBI collaborating with each other to pose as Trump supporters to stage that riot. And I saw the Antifas putting on the police uniforms in like a dugout down there in D.C. near the Capitol. And this is why the Capitol Police Chief on January 7th, the day after, January 7th, 2021, this is why he submitted his resignation, because he was afraid of this getting out to the public and him being held accountable. So he quit his job. But they allowed Antifa to infiltrate their police force and use police weapons against innocent Trump supporters. Tear gas, a lot of which I was subjected to. And they also were flashing tasers at people, pulling guns on people, all kinds of wild shit. Those weren't cops. That was Antifa. And if you don't believe that they actually carried this out, I saw this guy when I was there at the Capitol on January 6th. I saw him. And this is a known Antifa member who was paid $70,000 for his video of January 6, 2021 Capitol riot. The FBI said they have no proof of Antifa members dressing as Trump supporters and causing the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot. But yet, here's an Antifa member dressed as a Trump supporter being paid $70,000 for his video footage. And this is what we've been saying all these years. It was the FBI, Antifa, and Black Lives Matter. And this man's name is Jonathan Sullivan. John Sullivan. New Antifa BLM. You see how he's like jumping between both groups? Because both groups are one and the same. One is just for the white people and the other one's for the black people. Antifa BLM agitator John Sullivan, charged for his participation in the January 6th riot, was paid $35,000 apiece from CNN and NBC for his footage inside the Capitol. And guess what he was saying in the footage? He was saying, I can't believe we did it. I can't believe we got them to follow us. That's what he was saying, because that was their job. Cause the riot, break into the building, get Trump supporters to follow you so all the Trump supporters get arrested. And the only reason why he got arrested is because of what he was saying on that video. They had to silence him and put him away. But had he not told on himself in that video, they would have let him slide. Meanwhile, the other January 6th protesters that were let into the Capitol by the Capitol Police, they sat in jail from 2021 all the way to 2025 when Trump just pardoned everybody. It's a sick world we live in. And here's Keith Ellison. He was the Attorney General of Minnesota back in 2020. The Attorney General, top prosecutor, mind you. and big Black Lives Matter proponent. And there he is holding up an Antifa pamphlet because he is an active member of Antifa. And his son, Keith Ellison's son, a Minneapolis council member, pledges support for Antifa. June 2nd, 2020. And I forgot his name. Yeah, his name is Jeremiah Ellison. And mind you, while they're out here pretending and posing as social justice warriors, Keith Ellison actually beat his girlfriend bloody and gave her 2 black eyes. And I have that receipt in the repertoire, but I'm going to save that for my show. This is just about Black Lives Matter, so we'll keep it there. But you can't talk about Black Lives Matter without talking about Antifa, because they're both one and the same, and both groups carried out the riots together. But they did it under the Black Lives Matter banner. Now, this is what I was talking about, where the black kids were being suckered into doing dumb shit. 3 protesters tracked officers to their homes, torched their police cars, authorities said. And they all got arrested. And I'm pretty sure they were not the only ones that were tracking those police cars to their homes. And the cops, they were being ordered to stand down, but they were still making arrests. They were making arrests of the worst of the worst, the most violent, the most dangerous, and the most obvious, the ones they couldn't turn a blind eye to. But anything they could possibly turn a blind eye to, they turned a blind eye to. Because I'm pretty sure when these 3 were burning down businesses in the town, those same cops didn't do shit. But when those cops became targets, then they want to do something. So, yeah, you could do all the bullshit you want to other Americans, but as soon as you come do it to us, we're coming after you. And this is a lot of what we saw. And if you notice, the police are leaving their cars there for the rioters to destroy them. Because a lot of these cities, these democratic cities, they were having budget shortfalls because of all the bad economic policies driving all the money out of town. And their police departments were, their vehicles were getting old and needing to be replaced. So what better way to get new vehicles than to allow rioters to destroy those vehicles so you can file insurance claims? So even the police were running insurance scams. Ain't that something? Ain't that something? But the thing that broke my heart the most was when I saw so many Black Americans falling for the fake narrative that America is bad for Black people when this is their country. And there was a lot of this going on. And it was those dumbass white liberals that were convincing these, these ignorant Black folks to go out and engage in this stupid shit and disrespect their own nation and their own country. And it was heartbreaking to see, because these same Black folks are the same ones that travel the world and go to other countries and they complain about how bad they're being treated in other countries. They complain about how the tourism industry in the Caribbean caters to the white tourists more than the Black tourists. So obviously there's not very many places in the world Black Americans can go and make a home and feel comfortable. And that's because America is their home. But because of this liberal propaganda, they were actually brainwashed and conned into shitting on their own country. And as much as I have my disagreements with Tariq Nasheed and the FBA thing and his definition of the FBA thing, I have to say that I gotta respect FBA, because through the FBA movement, although it was a ploy to try to get Black people to reconnect back to Africa and play the back to Africa game, what it actually did is it got Black Americans to actually appreciate and connect with America. And now, And now I see more and more Black Americans embracing their Americanism rather than pissing on it like so many foolish Black folks were doing back in 2020 at the behest of the satanic, pedophilic, George Soros ran Democratic Party. So I got to say, salutes to FBA and respect to the FBA movement, because it's getting Black folks back to being American again, instead of being these slave-minded followers of these deceptive small hats and liberals. So I got to give respect where it's due. Yes. Magneto TV says Black Democrats are dangerously ignorant. Yes. The ones that are used by the establishment as puppets, they are desperately ignorant. But the ones at the top that cook up these schemes to play on Black Democrat voters, they are actually quite genius, but they're evil genius. But this guy right here, he's an idiot. Rand Paul opponent dons noose in latest campaign ad. Senator Rand Paul, Republican of Kentucky's opponent in the 2022 election, released a campaign advertisement in which he sports a noose around his neck while he discusses lynching. This guy's a fucking clown. Mind you, isn't this man the same member of the political party that helped steal the election for Joe Biden, whose mentor was a Ku Klux Klan grand wizard, Joe Biden, who was the author of the crime bill that locked up so many Black men and destroyed so many Black families? Joe Biden, that didn't want schools integrated because he said he didn't want his kids going to a racial jungle. But now he's got the nerve to the Joe Biden that said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't Black. But now this dumbass has got the nerve to put a noose around his neck like the white man is after him because he's running against a Republican. It's idiotic shit. It's that idiotic racist shit. And a lot of those Black Americans that were participating in the Black Lives Matter shenanigans and burning the American flag and pissing on America, they had nooses around their brains because they couldn't see past the skin color. They couldn't see past the Black versus white. They couldn't see past, recent history and Barack Obama. And they were too caught up in the skin color thing. But now, with the advent of the FBA movement being more focused on lineage, now when you talk lineage, that takes skin color off the table. Because just like there are Black Americans whose lineage goes back hundreds of years in this country, there's white Americans whose lineage goes back hundreds of years in this country and did not engage in slavery, did not disrespect or discriminate against Black people. In fact, prior to, I believe it was like 1630, interracial marriage was perfectly legal and acceptable in America, and it was rampant in America. And in the early 1600s was when the British government, who were the colonialists at the time, running the 13 colonies through their governors, they actually outlawed interracial marriage in, I believe it was 1630. And interracial marriage did not get reinstituted as a legal institution for another 330 years. It wasn't until the 1950s or 60s that interracial marriage became legalized through the Supreme Court in the Loving case. Or was it the 40s? But it was the 20th century. And it was the Democrats that were enslaving people, the liberals. It was the Democrats that were pushing for segregation. Those were all Democratic institutions. But this is the mind games that they were playing on black people. They were selling victimhood at a fire sale price, and they were getting millions of black Americans to buy into it and buy it up and shit on their own country. But you know what woke up black Americans? Seeing all these foreigners come in here and be given free passes and be given priority over them. That's when I started to see more black folks say, you know what? I need to fight for America and stop pissing on America. Because if I keep pissing on America, these foreigners are going to keep coming in here and they're going to start pissing on me. And that's when black America woke up and started realizing, hey, we're a part of America too. And then Tariq Nasheed came with the FBA thing and the lineage thing, and it just took off from there. And instead of FBA being, a tool to promote Pan-Africanism through Tariq Nasheed's official definition, what black folks actually did was they took the term, redefined it for themselves, and adopted it, and it galvanized them around the American flag. And now we're starting to see those racial lines, those racial divides between black people and white people start to dissipate and start to evaporate. Because whether you're black or you're white, if you're American, that's what unites you. Your race does not unite you. Your nationalism does. Your nationality does. And that's what I have to say about FBA. So I guess for the most part, I've sort of changed my position on the adoption of the term, but I still don't like the original definition by Tariq Nasheed. So that's why I don't have a problem. I can't sit here and say I have a problem with black folks redefining it for what it means, for what it means to them. Because that definition is more accurate than 100 Africans coming over here and that started FBA. Like, get the fuck out of here. But this is a sick mind game that they're playing. And what they're doing when they show the slave movies and every election cycle talk about slavery or racism and nooses and all the shit the Democrats did to them, matter of fact, what they're doing is they're playing on black folks' trauma. And they're making black people angry and emotional so they can manipulate them into voting against their own interests. Because remember, it was the racism narrative that they used to stop Trump building the border wall in 2018. It was the racism narrative that they used to advocate, to get Americans to advocate for their borders being open. It was the racism narrative, remember? But now that the race conversation is shifting into a lineage conversation, that strips away the power of division. Now, black folks and white folks have common ground and they can talk about America and what's best for America, not what's best for black people or what's best for white people, because what's best for both groups is what's best for America, because black people and white people were the original Americans. And by black people, I mean indigenous, Native American Indians. Yes, the black people are the Indians. That's why they were reclassified and recategorized so many times. Because the government has already made concessions to Native American tribes. And if black people wake up and realize their Native American heritage and find their Native American, indigenous American tribes, they'll then be entitled to all of those concessions that the government has made to the $5 Indians. And there's way more black folks than those $5 Indians. So that bill that the government got for those $5 Indians will get a lot higher if black folks were ever to wake up. If you want to get your reparations collectively, find your tribe. And of course, you had the media. So you had the politicians and the talking heads pushing the racial narrative, and then you had the media supporting the violence. Is that Andrew? No, that's Chris Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo's brother. Chris Cuomo says, Show me where it says protesters have to be polite and peaceful. But he forgot the Constitution. Because doesn't the First Amendment of the Constitution say you have a right to peaceably assemble to seek redress for your grievance? Peaceably, Chris Cuomo, peaceably. That's where the Constitution says protesters have to be polite and peaceful. That one word, peaceably. You piece of shit. Austin protesters storm police headquarters, haul down American Texas flags. They also burned them. Yep. A lot of that anti-American shit, because this whole operation was ran by foreign infiltrators, George Soros, and black people were used as basically the figureheads to spearhead this anti-American campaign. And you notice how Austin protesters, they don't call them rioters, but they storm police headquarters. Why don't you go try and get a group together and go storm your police headquarters? Guess what? Police will be storming your house before you even put your pants on. So the fact that they were able to do this in 2020, that means the police were ordered to stand down and allowed them to do it. You see, these were not organic riots that just started because people were so mad about racism, okay? These were well-organized, pre-planned, coordinated events with the professional crash outs being used as the foot soldiers to carry out the violence. And speaking of the NPC hierarchy, let me break it down for you. There's the pseudo-intellectuals, the dummies that pretend to be smart, and they're promoted like they're smart people to push the stupidity and the brainwashing. Then there's the blind followers, the people who don't necessarily engage in violence, but they believe the narrative. They believe the propaganda being put out by the pseudo-intellectuals, right? Chris Cuomo being one of the pseudo-intellectuals, pretending as if he doesn't know the Constitution. And then there's the crash outs, the protesters that storm police headquarters. You see? So you got the pseudo-intellectuals, you got the blind followers, and then, of course, you got the crash dummies. Green Light Cosmic Angel Fire. That's a very long name, but I like it. Says, Citizen Man, are you not Caribbean? And if so, you are indigenous as well. Yeah, politically I'm Caribbean because I'm from Guyana. I was born in Guyana, South America. So geographically, Guyana is a part of South America, but politically it's considered part of the Caribbean because it's the only English-speaking country in South America. And because the rest of the Caribbean is mostly English-speaking, Guyana is also incorporated in the Caribbean map. So I guess I am, brother. I guess I am. CNN, more pseudo-intellectualism. Look at this bullshit. CNN adds Greta Thunberg, the how dare you global warming chick, to the panel on what it's like being black in America. And of course, you got Don Lemon with making his little $5 million a year to push this bullshit. Then you got two random black folks. You got the lesbian and the gay dude. And then you got the little square-faced blockhead white girl telling us Americans what it's like to be black in America, as if we're not black in America. Like we don't fucking know this shit. But it was a play on the victimhood. And every time they talk about how hard it is and how bad it is to be black in America, they always sell it as if it's white people that's making it hard for black people in America. But if you go ask the average black person in America, who's giving them the most trouble in getting ahead and who's giving them the most help to get ahead, it's actually the other way around. Most black folks would say, hey, it's been black people pulling me down and holding me back. And it's been white people that have been giving me opportunities. That's the story for most black Americans. And I've heard it said over and over and over again by FBA Black Americans. But again, all this was a play on victimhood, a play on emotions. Look at this bullshit. New York City, remember when Bill de Blasio was the mayor of New York City back in 2020? June 12th, 2020. New York City First Lady Charlene McRae says it would be utopia for NYC to have no cops while she gets to live in her mansion behind her iron gate. Everybody else in New York City got to walk the streets with them goddamn criminals. That's utopia. And you see the irony here? You got this black woman being used to push Black Lives Matter, but she's married to the white man. And you see this a lot in Democratic circles where they push these black women to do this bullshit. Like Kamala Harris, for example, married to a white man. A small hat at that. Or how about Ketanji Brown Jackson, the black woman that the Biden administration, the Biden auto pen, appointed to the Supreme Court. She's married to a white man. Because they don't want black families. They're just selling out and being used as puppets and allowing the political structure to remain intact in order for them to maintain their position. They don't care about the people. They're just there to collect a paycheck. And they don't care how goofy and ironic it looks. They're just there to collect a check. So they're going to say whatever needs to be said. They're going to do whatever needs to be done in order to get that money. And tune into my show Sunday night at 10:30 p.m. I got a video clip of Brandon Johnson playing the word games with the illegal aliens, and he exposed the whole play in that one little 30-second clip. And boy, I can't wait to show it. I'm almost tempted to show it to you tonight, but we ain't talking about that. Convicted terrorist Susan Rosenberg raising funds for Marxist Black Lives Matter. You see that? Small hat. Funding Black Lives Matter. George Soros funding Black Lives Matter. This is who's calling the shots. So they're preaching to you about racism and how racist America is. But then when you look at the people behind the curtain pulling the strings, they're the very same racists that they're telling black people to be afraid of. I didn't deserve it. Pandemic shut down his barbershop. Then a fire destroyed it. And this is a black man. And you know who did this? The Black Lives Matter rioters. So it's black business. And there's a lot of black business people that suffered the same fate because it wasn't about Black Lives Matter. Let me explain something to you guys, because I've dabbled in real estate. And for those of you who've been involved in real estate, you're going to understand this the first time around without the examples and the explanations. When you have these major cities, a lot of these cities, these downtown properties have increased significantly in value due to the developments in the downtown metropolitan areas. And a lot of these business owners had owned the properties that their businesses were operating out of. So what they did was they ordered the police to stand down. First, the politicians, the city council members, they made these backdoor deals with outside investors to buy these properties at some point in the future. And they then turned around and devalued the properties by turning loose the Black Lives Matter protesters, allowing them to destroy these businesses, knowing that these business owners did not have insurance and could not cover the cost of repairs and would never be able to recover from the damages. So what happens is the buildings now become abandoned. When the buildings become abandoned, the city takes possession of those buildings, either the city or the county, depending on the state. But it's usually the city. When the city takes possession of these properties, the city can now turn around and sell these properties to investors for very, very cheap, but still high enough to make a profit for themselves. And that was the play in allowing the small businesses to be destroyed. Now, when it came to the big major corporations like Walmart and Target and all those places, it was a whole different play. So for the little people, it was basically to destroy their property so the city can steal it out from under them. Put them in a position where they couldn't continue to operate in their properties, and they would have to forfeit their properties into the possession of the city. With the big corporations, it was a lot more at play. And this is why you see these same Democrats that were profiting from these backdoor deals promoting Black Lives Matter. This woman doesn't deserve to be a part of the Congress of the United States. She's going to get people killed. She's inciting already angry Minnesota rioters, fanning the flames. Then she gets back in her limo into her private jet back home to her very secure California mansion. These people are sick and dangerous. And this is Maxine Waters. As she says, we got to stay on the street, and we've got to get more active, and we got to get more confrontational. We've got to make sure that they know that we mean business. Let me see if I could do my Maxine Waters impression. We've got to stay on the street, and we've got to get more active. We've got to get more confrontational. We've got to make sure that they know that we mean business. I don't know. That was a horrendous Maxine Waters impression. But it's funny when you listen to her talk, she sounds like she's inhaling as she's speaking instead of like exhaling like a normal person would talk. It sounds like her vocal cords are working in reverse. It's the weirdest shit. Representative Al Green calls for war on racism in wake of George Floyd death. Yes, you had the politicians fanning the flames, supporting this nonsense. And not just the politicians, the Democrat politicians. And they all should hang for treason. And they were so diabolical about pushing these riots and carrying out this operation. Mayor walks back statement. Oh, he's the mayor of St. Paul, not Minneapolis. Jacob Pflia is the mayor of Minneapolis. This guy is Melvin Carter. He was the mayor of St. Paul back in 2020. And he walks back statement saying every person arrested in Minneapolis protests was from out of state. He came out publicly that same morning of May 30th, and made that statement that every person arrested was from out of state. Then by 3:12 p.m., that's why I got it highlighted there in the bottom. I don't know if you guys can see it. The text is pretty small. But what's underlined with the red arrow pointing to it was the time, which is 3:12 p.m., just a few hours after he made the statement, which was true, that the rioters that were getting arrested were out-of-state people. He walked it back because he was threatened. And he was forced to walk it back. That's why, because you can't let that get out to the public. No, people need to be made to believe that these riots are grassroots and organic, starting in these towns, and it's the people of these towns doing it when in fact it was out-of-towners. Melvin Carter, the mayor of St. Paul, Minnesota, on Saturday said he was wrong when he declared that every person arrested in violent Minneapolis protests was from out of state. But the thing is, he wasn't wrong. He was not wrong. Shout out to Marion over at B Miles chat. Says, nah, that was pretty good, sir. Appreciate you, Marion. And why do we only have 59 people over on B Miles' channel? What is going on? Normally we top out over 100. What's going on? I hope YouTube ain't putting the brakes on my brother, because his upload's been doing numbers. I hope to God. Now, here's the Black Lives Matter Patrice Cullors lady again, the one I showed you earlier with the satanic logo. Capitalism doesn't love black people, she says. And then the New York Post reports, Marxist BLM leader buys $1.4 million home in ritzy LA enclave. Well, it sure seems like capitalism loved her. So is she not black? Is she not black? But you see, again, the pseudo intellectuals pushing the propaganda. She doesn't mean a damn word of anything she's saying. But the reason why she's trying to talk black people out of embracing true capitalism, not the corporatism where there's corporate monopolies like we have in America today, but I mean true Main Street commerce. The reason why she's trying to talk black folks out of engaging in commerce is in order to keep them impoverished. Because if black people stay poor, they'll stay angry. And if they stay angry, they're much easier to control because all we have to do is tell them it's the white man's fault that you're poor. And then boom, they'll go out and start a race war and destabilize the country. This woman was one of the most evil pieces of shit I have ever seen in Democratic politics because she profited millions of dollars off of the deaths of the very same black people she claimed her organization was there to advocate for. It's diabolical. There's no other word for it, just straight diabolical. White liberal governors are letting their states burn by looters. Ours is giving its citizens permission to stop it cold. Go, Ron, go. And the neonnettle.com says Florida to allow citizens to shoot rioters and looters who target their property. Right. And this is why the Black Lives Matter riots and the burning down of shit, if you go trace it back city by city, every single city where there was a riot and police stand downs and people getting hurt and killed and shit burning down, every single city was a Democratic city. Every single one, no exceptions. They might have been happening in Republican states, but they were Democratic cities. Not to mention, they were the politicians, while they were telling everybody else to wear masks and stay home and social distance. Remember, this was 2020, the height of the pandemic. At the same time they were telling us to do all of that, they were advocating for these rioters to gather in large crowds and go terrorize the city streets. And the riots alone should have been enough to let you know the whole COVID narrative was garbage. It was a lie. Because if there really was a deadly pandemic going around, the last thing these politicians would be doing would be advocating for people to go out and gather in large crowds. But they did. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let me give you a drum roll really quick without tearing up my desk. Time to get to the corporate scam. Now, what we saw during the Black Lives Matter riots were a lot of businesses being burnt down, small businesses and big businesses alike, right? Oh shit, B Miles, did I lose you? Damn, how long you been gone from the show, bro? Damn, you was gone this whole time. Damn, my bad, homie. I wasn't in the studio. I was in the gallery. That's why I couldn't see you there, man. My bad, bro. Shit. Should have shot me a text message or something, man. But it's all good. It's all good. So the small businesses were being burnt down in order for the city councils to take possession of those properties and sell those properties to outside investors at discounted rates because they had already made the backdoor deals, right? Now, in watching the big corporations like Walmart and Target and all of them being burnt down, it was very weird because at the same time that Black Lives Matter and these Antifa foot soldiers were destroying these Walmarts and these Target stores, these very same companies were pledging tens of millions of dollars to Black Lives Matter. It almost seemed like on the surface, Black Lives Matter was extorting money from them and destroying their properties if they didn't pay up. But then when you really think about it, they were already making the pledges to pay out this money. And they had already partially paid out the money. So it couldn't have been extortion if the corporations were complying. So what was the driving force behind these corporations continuing to fund the very same organizations that were destroying their stores, right? Well, let me explain. It was, oh shit, I'm back in the studio. Let me get back to the gallery. Is looting covered by insurance? That's the magic word. Depends on the business. And this article talks about how the big corporations had insurance, so they were able to cover the damages, but the small businesses didn't have adequate insurance, if any at all. Thus, they lost their properties. Now, the reason why these big corporations were able to dole out and dish out tens of millions of dollars to Black Lives Matter as their stores were being looted and destroyed was because they were, in turn, as a result of suffering this damage to their stores, they were collecting hundreds of millions of dollars in insurance claims. So, ladies and gentlemen, part of the Black Lives Matter scam, besides stealing the properties from small business owners, was also to get their hands on the insurance money from these destroyed big box stores as a kickback for destroying the store. If you grew up where I grew up and you come from the hood, you might have witnessed this a time or two in your life where there would be an individual that would be behind on their car payments. Car's about to get repoed, right? And what they would do is they would pay a couple $100 to some neighborhood kids to take the car somewhere, destroy it, and torch it. And what that individual would then turn around and do is call the police, report their car stolen, call their insurance, report the car being totaled, and get a check from the insurance for the value of the vehicle. So the kids go out, do the dirty work. The owner of the vehicle gets paid from the insurance, and the kids get a kickback for doing the dirty work. Now imagine that scheme on a national corporate scale. That's exactly what happened. Right, ambitions of a rider. They profit off their loss. And I'll prove it to you right now. And in proving that to you, I'll also prove to you why in 2020, in case you were wondering, why Donald Trump declared Antifa a terrorist organization, but not Black Lives Matter. One reason, of course, was because had he declared Black Lives Matter a terrorist organization, which in fact it was, the media would have went into a firestorm about him being racist because he's calling black people terrorists. So he dodged that bullet. But the other reason why he did not declare Black Lives Matter a terrorist organization was because these riots, although Antifa members were actively involved, the riots were being conducted under the Black Lives Matter banner. So he couldn't declare them a terrorist organization because it would have gotten them a larger payout from major corporations. Now, this page that I'm showing you here, this is Walmart's insurance policy. It's the memorandum of property insurance for Walmart. And in their total insurance coverage, it's $775 million in insurance coverage. Now, I have the pages that are clearer where you can actually see the line items, and that's what we're going to go to now. So let me stop the screen share really quick. Start the screen share again and grab the big gallery. That's what I call it, the big gallery, the one I can zoom in on. All right, so now we're in the big gallery. So let's zoom back out. And let me see if I can bounce through here and find the Walmart insurance policy. It's in here somewhere. It's just not in order. That's why I got to use two galleries, because one puts everything in order and the other gallery allows me to zoom in. All right, so check this shit out. Dang it. I thought the pages would be closer together. Guess I thought wrong. Okay, here we go. All right, these two are close together. That's good. That's what we need. All right, so check this out. This is the Memorandum of Property Insurance. You see that there? And you see this right here? Walmart Incorporated, its subsidiaries, and its affiliates. So this is Walmart's Memorandum of Property Insurance. So this is their official insurance document. It became effective April 1st, 2020, and lasted a year, April 1st, 2021, right within the timeline of the George Floyd riots, right? So they had all this pre-planned already. They already knew what time it was. Let me just Google something really fast. I want to look up the date George Floyd died, because I believe he died either in March or April. Let me see. Date of George Floyd death. May 25th, 2020. That's even more sinister, because if Walmart started this policy in April, and then the very next month, the trigger event happens to start the riots, that means this shit was absolutely 100% pre-planned. This was no coincidence. This is no coincidence at all. But I want you to see this. All the coverage that they have, right? They got commercial property coverage amount of insurance, $825 million. Oh, I put 775, but I guess the total coverage is 825. So that number that was stamped in red on the last slide was incorrect. It's 825. So it was $50 million short. You got rental income. Yes. Blanket coverage, full replacement value. Yes. Look at this right here. Terrorism coverage. Yes. Is domestic terrorism excluded? No, that means it includes domestic terrorism. Limited fungus coverage? No. Fungus exclusion? Yes. Replacement costs? Yes. Agreed value? No. That means they get to determine the value. When they file their claim, they tell the insurance company how much money they need back. Co-insurance? No. Equipment breakdown? Yes. Ordinance or law, coverage for loss to damaged portion of building? Yes. Demolition costs? Yes. Increased cost of construction? Yes. Earth movement, that would be, these would fall under natural disasters. Earth movement, that would be an earthquake? Yes. Flood? Yes. Wind, hail? Yes. Permission to waive subrogation in favor of mortgage holder prior to loss, right? So let's go to the next slide where all the line items are actually priced out. So let's start here. Ordinance or law, coverage for loss to undamaged portion of property included. Demolition costs, $50 million. Increased cost of construction, $50 million. And guess what? With the riots, the looting, and the destruction of their property, they would be able to claim demolition costs and increased cost of construction in order to rebuild. So from Black Lives Matter destroying Walmart stores, the Walmart Corporation, Walmart Inc., was actually able to cash in on $100 million of their insurance claim. Right? Now, let me Google something really quick. How much money did Walmart give to Black Lives Matter? Walmart did not give money directly to the Black Lives Matter organization, but rather committed $100 million over 5 years to its own Center for Racial Equity to fund related initiatives and nonprofit organizations. So Walmart did not hand over the whole 100 million, to Black Lives Matter. The 100 million over 5 years that they committed, according to Google, would have amounted to $20 million a year. So that first year, when they collected the $100 million for insurance money from the insurance money, they gave the Center for Racial Equity 20 million, who then funneled that money to Black Lives Matter, which would be a nonprofit organization. So they used a third party because it would have looked odd had they given that money directly to Black Lives Matter, considering the fact that Black Lives Matter were the reason why they filed that $100 million insurance claim in the first place. So it was actually quite slick that they did that they used a third party to kind of wash the money through. So they gave in 2020, presumably, $20 million to Black Lives Matter, but they collected $100 million. And with that $100 million, they would be able to rebuild their stores and get them back operating, and then they would be back to making their billions a year so they can give Black Lives Matter or their Center for Racial Equity, quote unquote, their $20 million yearly until the $100 million commitment is paid, right? Now, this brings me to the portion of the terrorist organization designation. Many of us conservative Americans were upset that Trump did not declare Black Lives Matter a terrorist organization. We just, for the life of us, could not understand why would he declare Antifa a terrorist organization when all the terrorism we're watching in 2020 is being done by Black Lives Matter, by the Black Lives Matter banner. Why would he do that? Is he that afraid of being called a racist? That seems very unlike Trump, because Trump don't give a fuck what you call him. He's going to do what needs to be done. He's done that in every other aspect, right? So why would he then be so timid to call Black Lives Matter a terrorist organization? Well, looking at this insurance policy, that explains it. Look at this. Terrorism coverage, $200 million. So in 2020, had Trump officially designated Black Lives Matter a terrorist organization, not only would Walmart had been able to collect the $100 million for the demolition and reconstruction, but they also would have been able to collect an added $200 million for a grand total of a $300 million insurance claim. And that was their plan when they set up this policy a month before George Floyd happened. And once again, Trump being Trump, he thwarted their plan. And he thwarted their plan by refusing or declining to declare Black Lives Matter a terrorist organization. Thus, Walmart could not claim that extra $200 million. So it was their plan to get $300 million and funnel a large portion of that money to Black Lives Matter, but they were unable to do so because Trump didn't designate them a terrorist organization. Thus, they lost that $200 million insurance claim. Fucking brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliantly played by Trump. So for those of you who were still scratching your heads and wondering why is it that Trump declared Antifa a terrorist organization so easily, but left Black Lives Matter out, this is why. Because had he done that and appeased the American people, it would have put us in a worse position because our enemies would have been able to collect more money that they could weaponize more foot soldiers against us. Trump robbed them of that opportunity. It was absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. This is why I keep telling people, when it comes to Trump, you're going to see him do a lot of shit that you may not understand right away, and you may not even like it. But he's doing it for a greater purpose that will serve you and benefit you in the future. Because Walmart couldn't collect this 200 million, think about all the other major corporations. I couldn't find their insurance policies because they weren't publicly available, but Walmart's was back in 2020. Now it's not. I've had these screenshots since 2020. You understand? That's how long I had to keep these, because I knew one day I'd need it again. And here we are. That day has come. So think about Target's insurance policy with the terrorism coverage. If it was anything similar to Walmart's policy, they lost out on $200 million as well. Every other major company that had hundreds of millions of dollars in terrorism coverage, they were unable to collect on that money because the organization that destroyed their business was never designated a terrorist organization. So whenever you see Trump do shit that makes you scratch your head and wonder whose side he's really on, this is why Q said in the beginning of all this back in 2018, trust the plan. Because if the plan was going to be something we could all just follow at the surface level, there would be no need for Q to remind us to trust the plan, unless there would be times when our trust in the plan would begin to falter. We would begin to wonder, what is this plan really about? Whose side are these people really on? Well, now you know. Imagine what Black Lives Matter would have been able to do if Walmart was able to collect that 200 million and give them half of that shit. Imagine the damage they would cause. And when it comes to Trump and how he plays the enemy and gets them to sabotage themselves, or he sabotages them himself, I know there's a lot of people out there that are mad at Trump about the COVID vaccine and endorsing the vaccine and Operation Warp Speed. That was a head scratcher for me too. I couldn't understand it either back in 2020 when he started giving all this funding to these pharmaceutical companies. But then when 2021 rolled around, and then later in 2021 to 2022, the Supreme Court struck down the employer mandate, then it all made sense. Vaccines, by law, have to undergo anywhere from 3 to 10 years of testing before they can be considered available for market and not experimental, right? Operation Warp Speed, it came with funding for the pharmaceutical companies, which most of us left a bad taste in our mouth about Trump over that. But with that funding came stipulations like, okay, you get this money, but here's what you have to do in order for us to not come back and take that money back from you. And what the deal was we'll give you this money, but you got to crank out that vaccine in 12 months. So guess what happened? They cranked out the vaccine in 12 months. And then they try to mandate it. But according to federal law, you cannot mandate experimental medicine. That's why the government didn't mandate it, but they were encouraging private businesses to mandate it. Because the government could have been sued very easily and lost very easily. But private businesses were able to get away with it because they have leverage over their employees. Their employees depend on them for their paychecks. So a lot of people felt forced into taking it because they didn't want to lose their job. And that was the wrong way to go. What should have happened is there should have been mass strikes where employees as a whole would have unionized and decided we're not coming to work until you drop that stupid ass mandate because you're my boss and it is not your job to play doctor and tell me what medical treatment I need to take in order to come to work and do my job when I've been doing my job this whole time before this bullshit. But people fell victim to the propaganda and they went and got it, a lot of folks. But by the time the vaccine mandate, the employer mandate, came before the Supreme Court was able to strike it down because, again, based on U.S. law, you cannot mandate an experimental medicine. So the employer mandate could not stand. And the reason why the employer mandate could not stand is because the vaccine, once it was brought to market, was still considered under the emergency use authorization, which means it was an experimental medicine. And it will always be an experimental medicine because they did not have the 3 to 10 years to claim that it was ever properly tested. So Operation Warp Speed forced them to put out the vaccine a lot faster than they had initially intended, which destroyed any chance of them ever being able to mandate it and use the force of government to mandate it. It was a brilliant play. Now, for those of you that are still upset about Operation Warp Speed, you know what would have happened without Operation Warp Speed? Because this is the part that a lot of those people aren't taking into consideration. Here's what would have happened without Operation Warp Speed. There would have been no vaccine, so all the vaccine heads and all the media followers out there would have still been living in fear of the pandemic. The fake news would have kept businesses shut down and kept everybody in fear for 3 whole years, from 2020 all the way to 2023, maybe even up until 2025. So instead of the pandemic lasting 1 year like it did, it would have lasted 3 years. Then after those 3 years, the pharmaceutical companies would have then dropped the biological weapon on us, which was the COVID vaccine. It would have been 3 years past since they quote unquote started developing it. Thus, they could claim it was properly tested. They just had to pay off the right doctors to say so on paper. And boom, there's your mandate. Now the men with the guns and the white lab coats show up at your door to shoot you and your family up with either the vaccine or lead. That's the way things would have went without Operation Warp Speed. So Operation Warp Speed stripped their ability to be able to do that. Brian Butler says, how is Fauci still free? That's not Fauci, bro. That's a replacement. Fauci's gone. Fauci's been gone. Fauci's been gone since 2020. You remember back in 2020 when Trump brought in Dr. Scott Atlas, Atlas, Scott Atlas? Look him up. Scott Atlas was the guy that Trump replaced Fauci with. But of course, the fake news didn't promote Scott Atlas, because Scott Atlas was the one that said he started proposing all these different treatments outside of the vaccine for COVID, like UV light. He was the one that brought up that University of California at Berkeley study that UV light kills viruses. UV light, sound vibrations, that was the type of time he was on. But the media didn't give him no shine. They just kept letting Fauci go around, do interview after interview after interview. And well, now Fauci's nowhere to be found. He got mopped up with Patrice Cullors and the rest of them. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think that brings us to the end of tonight's cook session. I hope I've covered all the aspects of the Black Lives Matter riots, and I hope I've been able to shed some light on some things, including some, what would have been unfavorable moves by Trump and how they work to our benefit. So we've covered the scam, we've covered the Satanism, we've covered the pedophilia. And that's what it's been about: scamming, Satanism, and pedophilia. That's what it's always been about, because that's what the Democratic Party is about. So any organization that's an offshoot of the Democratic Party, they would all be on the same type of time. Excuse me. Damn. Y'all being mean tonight, man. I don't think we got one donation tonight. That's crazy. I thought maybe I missed something. I'm over here checking and shit just to make sure I shout everybody out. Ain't nobody to shout out. Man, I'm heartbroken. My heart, you're breaking my heart. But yeah, man. So that's what it is, yo. That's what it is. The Black Lives Matter riots was one big insurance scam, one big satanic ritual. It was a display of power, so to speak, and an attempt to promote everything evil that we should run away from: racism, segregation, separation, dividing ourselves, and of course, the sexual perversion. So, B Miles, what do you think about the cook session, man? I got to give you the floor, brother. I think I said everything I needed to say and shared everything I needed to share. And y'all make sure y'all keep that like button too on both channels. Both channels.
I'm gonna say a lot of great information, man. I was sitting here just soaking it all up, man. How you was connecting the dots. It was a lot of info, man. I definitely got to listen, man. Like tonight, man, this is like a lot of stuff, man. Like the way how you was connecting it all and this, that, and the third with the symbolism, my brother. I really gotta say you did an awesome job tonight breaking this stuff down. I'm breaking this stuff down, man. I gotta give it to you, man. That was really awesome, bro.
I appreciate that, B Miles. And I want to give a big shout out to the B Lady. B Lady, where you been? Where you been? I need some of that natural honey. Got It's wintertime and the bees they not busy because ain't no flowers around. They all ran down south. But shout out to the B Lady for the super chat. She says, "You nut. Nobody has money at Christmas." And you know what, B Lady? You sure right. Because I was just talking the other day about how much I hate Christmas, and tonight I completely forgot that it was Christmas. Like I've just tuned myself out of the holiday spirit. So I'm thinking it's just a regular time of year that it just happened to be cold. But you do have a point there. So my bad, y'all. I'm sorry. Maybe I broke y'all hearts. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to call y'all out like that. This is not an extortion tactic. You know what I'm saying? I just need somebody to throw some change in the cup, man. We just need some change in the cup. It's cold outside. We begging, and we need some change in the cup. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, B Miles, yeah, brother, I do appreciate you lending me the floor and giving it a listen. Now let me ask you something. What do you think of hold up? Oh shit, I think I just muted my mic. What do you think about that play that Trump made with the declaring Antifa a terrorist organization but not Black Lives Matter? Start here, right? I want you to start with what did you think when you first realized that's what he was doing, and what were your thoughts back then? And now that I've explained it with the insurance and showed you the insurance policy and the real reason why he did it, what do you think about it now?
It make more sense, and it makes a lot more sense, and just by you breaking that down the way how you did, it all makes a lot of sense. It was just dots being connected. I'm like, wow, it was on another level. Just by like how the way you broke that down, it was mind blowing because when you was up there talking about Antifa and stuff like that, everything that you were saying about them, it makes a lot of sense because they was busing these people in from like many different cities and states. And while they was up there protesting, they will like infiltrate in the protest and then he would start breaking things down. So it makes a lot of sense.
Well, I appreciate that, bro. And that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to decipher these otherwise complex situations in the political field and the socio-political field and make sense of it all, because that's just the type of person I am. Being confused upsets me. So whenever I see something that confuses me, the first thing I want to do is I want to figure it out and I want to solve it. That's why I quit studying engineering, because calculus was hard enough and differential equations was harder. And I was like, I'm going to punch somebody. So I'm just going to tap out right here. I've reached my limit. This shit is too confusing. I can't figure it out. So I went into politics, which is something I can figure out. And yeah, I used to get violent a lot back in the day. Not anymore, though. Not anymore. I'll punch a wall, but I ain't going to hit nobody because people got guns and shit. But, you know, When I see things like this that confuse me, the first thing I want to do is figure it out. What is the play? What's the play? What's the play? So before I get mad about what a politician is doing, I try to understand it, right? Even with the Democrats, they do a lot of shit that pisses me off, but I try to understand it. And that's why I'm able to dig so deep into what the agenda really is, right? Like them opening the borders and bringing in all the illegals. I was pissed off about that. But then my natural instinct was, but why? Why would you want to destroy your own country like that? Oh, I know, because the people that you were using as your slave class before, the black people, are starting to wake up to your bullshit. And now you need to bring in another group of people who aren't awake to your bullshit to help keep you in power. That's what it is. That's what it is. And that's why you're paying them off with all our tax money, because you know the next election cycle, they're going to be able to go vote illegally and they're going to vote for you so they can keep getting that free money. You know, like just trying to connect the dots, put the pieces together. Because the thing is, the way these deceivers play with us, they make they layer their deceptions. Their deception game, it's like an onion. You know, there's one lie to cover this lie, to cover that lie, to cover this lie. So before you get to the truth, you got several layers of bullshit to sift through to figure out, oh, they did this so they can get here, and they got here so they can do this, and they're doing this so they can make this happen, and they're making this happen so they can promote that person. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how they play, and they keep everybody in this endless loop of wondering what's going on and why. Because again, if you keep the people emotional, even being confused is a state of emotion, right? The only way to break out of the emotion of confusion, the state of mind of confusion, is to start solving the problem. Because while you're in the process of problem solving, you now have to be logical and pragmatic. But if you just sit there in your confusion, it'll morph into frustration. And now you become emotional and unproductive and manipulable, more easily manipulated. You know what I'm saying? So that's why they do it that way. And they know that the people that support them and follow them aren't really that sharp. So they're not going to read that deep into it. But for people like us, that's what I think. And I think that's what makes us so important to this truth movement, because there's plenty of other conservative commentators out there, and they talk about what they talk about all the time, but it's always just surface level. They always just give their opinion on a news story or whatever's popular or whatever's happening and being talked about by everybody else. That's what they talk about. And their numbers grow and they profit greatly from it, but they're not really giving the people what they really need. They're not really alleviating the people from this constant state of confusion and trying to figure out what the hell is happening to my country. They're not giving the people anything of substance. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like the substance is more important than the money, because as more people start to wake up, they'll start to appreciate us more. They'll start to share our content more. They'll start to bring us more followers. And with that growth comes the money. You know what I'm saying? So I can't just sit up here and do a whole 2-hour live stream telling you Trump good, Democrats bad, Trump good, Democrats bad, Democrats did this, Democrats bad, Trump did this, Trump good. You know, I can't just do that, even though I know it'll explode my channel, it'll blow me up, and it'll bring me all kinds of supporters and shit and get my monetization popping and all that. I can't do it. I don't feel fulfilled in doing that. You know what I'm saying? The fulfillment comes from taking the enlightenment that I've sought out for myself and acquired for myself and blessing others with it. So I'll do all the digging. I'll do all the reading. I'll do all the research. And it is my pleasure to get on this camera and share it with you all. And I bring the receipts because I encourage people to take screenshots. So when you start having these conversations with other people and you need to break this shit down, you got the receipts too. It ain't just me with them. You know what I'm saying? That's why I don't hide my content behind a paywall, even though I could. I don't. All my content is free and accessible on YouTube and Rumble because I want people to understand it. Because the deeper of an understanding you have of your political system and the games these politicians play, is the easier it will be for you to navigate the political field and know who represents you, who is on your side, and who is working against you and who is your enemy. This is war. It's not a game. But you got it, bro. You got the floor.
Nah, you good, citizen, man. That was really good information, man. I'm glad, you know what I'm saying, that you know what I'm saying, you came out to the platform once again tonight, though, brother, man. And I really gotta say I appreciate everybody coming out, you know what I'm saying, showing love and support for the live stream tonight on this Friday, you know what I'm saying, but y'all could have been doing anything else. And like I said, y'all go ahead and subscribe the Citizen Man channel and stuff like that. Like I said, go ahead and subscribe. You know what I mean? Subscribe to this brother channel. Me and this brother, we've been locking in for quite some time on this information. You feel me? So like I said, it's, you know what I mean, it's definitely honor and the privilege, you know what I mean, to be hosting them. And like I said, it's only, you know what I mean, it's only right, you know what I'm saying, to like subscribe to this information. You feel me? Because it's not too many brothers out here that's really bringing this information on, you know what I mean, that's not bringing this stuff surface level to where it's really going in deep. You feel me? So, like I said, though, family, it's always a pleasure. You know what I mean? You can close it out, bro.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that, brother. And I will say this to B Miles's audience, I just want you guys to know how special this dude is right here to the whole truth movement. Not only was he the one that put me up on game about Nasara, because I had no idea what it was until I heard so many years ago B Miles talking about that. And it prompted me to start digging into it and finding what I was finding. But also, when it comes to the conscious space as a whole, B Miles was the only black man in the conscious space. What was that, like 4 or 5 years ago when you made that stream, B Miles?
I think it might have been
The hold
7
your own nuts. Yeah, it was
Yep,
a minute. It was,
yep, back in 2018.
yeah, that was a minute, bro. And he was the only other black man in the conscious space besides myself that was calling out the illegal immigration. Because back then, that was when everybody was on the whole Trump's wall is racist, it's stolen land, so we got to let these people in and all this nonsense. And B Miles was the only black man that I heard besides myself calling out the illegals. And that right there, that's what made me, excuse me, that's what made me really start rocking with him, because I was like, you know what? This brother sees what's happening. He sees what I see, and I need to rock with him. You know what I'm saying? And the message became so powerful that you lost your channel around that time, didn't you?
Matter of fact, my channel, I lost my first channel like around 20. They got
You just beeped in and out. Say that again.
oh no, what I was saying was my first channel got terminated back around 2023 for real. But I was saying that back around like 2017, 2018 is when I started talking about, you know, illegal immigration, why I don't support it. Yep, so this is around 2017, 2018 when, you know, I kicked that off on them.
Yeah, and I saw the reaction that you got, and it wasn't nearly as profound as the reaction that you're getting now. You know what I'm saying? Because back then most people didn't see the problem, because the problem hadn't metastasized into what it is today. So I just want to give you your flowers and say, you know, that was excellent on your part to to even be able to even have the courage to be able to say that, especially to the audience that you have, who, you know, for the most part, weren't really on that type of time or even thinking along those lines. You know what I'm saying? And for you to bring that issue to them, and now here we are years later, and everybody's on the same page. So much so that this issue is even, you know, destroying the racial divide, because we're all uniting under our Americanism. From my perspective, bro, when it comes to this conscious space, you get a lot of credit for spearheading that effort.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks, brother. I appreciate it, man. I definitely appreciate you, man. Giving my flowers on that. I definitely appreciate it, though, bro. Yeah, man. It was like once I really saw how things unfold, I said, you know what? I gotta put this out there to my people. I said, like, they might not see it now, but they will see it later. But You know what I mean? And I'm definitely glad I've been going hard on it, man. So I definitely appreciate that, my brother.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, man, for sure. Let's see, we're almost at 2.5 hours. So B Miles, if you want to shut it down, we can shut it down now, man. I'm cool with that. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, cool, back. Yeah, man. Yep. So we can, yep, go ahead and, yep, shut it down. It's about definitely been a great stream. Yep, it's like 12 o'clock over here. So I definitely had a good stream, man. And like I said, family, we're definitely going to be doing this again next week. And y'all enjoy the rest of your night. Y'all peace out.
Peace, bro. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for tonight's show. I think I've said enough, man. I've cooked long enough, and I don't want to keep hijacking my brother's channel. So, excuse me. So, I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. I appreciate you guys being here. Definitely appreciate the love. Definitely appreciate the support. Hopefully, the views will make up for the lack of donations because I know B Miles has been getting a lot of views on his uploads, and I'm so glad to see that brother bounce back like that. And hopefully, I could be right in line behind him. But I need you guys' help to make that happen. So if you're not subscribed to the Citizen Man channel, come on over to Citizen Man TV. Subscribe to Citizen Man TV. Click the link in the description box, bounce over to the Rumble page, create a Rumble account, become another user on Rumble to help grow the channel. And, you know, give me a follow, like the videos, comment on the videos, and that stimulates the algorithm. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, I want to thank you guys for being here. Shout out to everybody in both of my chats on YouTube and Rumble. Appreciate you guys for being here. Most definitely. Most definitely. Shout out to everybody in B Miles chat. You guys are the, I don't know, are y'all the greatest audience or the second greatest audience? Because I like to say my audience is the greatest audience, but I don't know now. Maybe it's a draw. But shout out to all you guys on both channels. Y'all all great viewers. You know, you're great people, great patriots. You love this country, and that's what we need more of. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I want y'all to have a blessed weekend. I'll be back on my channel, Citizen Man TV, on Sunday. So, if you want more, come on over. I got plenty for everybody. All right. So, see you on the next one. Citizen Man out.